Crying
And
about
you know, that
crying
made
about a Madden game. So guess what? Last Thursday night, there was a football game, a real live football game with real live people.
who
And it
played?
happened in Arizona at the Cardinals Stadium, where the Packers came in to play the Cardinals, who were still at that point the only undefeated team. Yes, the Cards came into week 8, the only undefeated team in the league. They suffered their first loss, and it was Kyler Murray's first game without a touchdown, neither in the air or on the ground. Not good. Not only that, but he threw 2 interceptions. Now, I mentioned last week that he took some heavy hits from the Texans defense. It looked to me like he still wasn't 100%. The Packers D, for the most part, kept him under control. He was 22 of 33 for 274 yards, and he was sacked twice. And none of his wide receivers stood out in a positive way, unless you want to count DeAndre Hopkins, who struggled in and out of the lineup with a hamstring and only caught 2 passes. But one of them was a 55-yarder, and the other one would have been a 61-yard touchdown, but somehow in the tussle for the ball, he got some kind of a face mask penalty at the goal line, so it didn't count as a touchdown, but it was a big play. All 3 Cardinals touchdowns came on the ground, 1 from Chase Edmonds and 2 by James Conner. And again, James Conner, all he does is score touchdowns. The Packers now had their issues coming into the game also. Devontae Adams and Alan Lazard were both on the COVID list, and Valdez-Scantling has a hamstring injury. Aaron Rodgers worked with what he had. He managed to find his old buddy, Randall Cobb, in the end zone, which you predicted, twice. Most of the dirty work was done on the ground with a strong effort from Aaron Jones, who rushed 15 times for 110 yards and caught 7 balls for an additional 51. A.J. Dillon also helped out, keep Jones fresh. He carried the ball 16 times for 78 yards. Next up, the Atlanta Falcons hosted the Carolina Panthers in a division matchup. Now, I thought for sure the Panthers would get handled in this game the way they've been playing lately, but their up and down defense got up for this one. They intercepted Matt Ryan twice. 1 interception was by Shaq Thompson, and 1 by newly acquired Stephon Gilmore. We forgot about that. He was released by the Patriots, came into Carolina, but did not play right away, so people kind of forgot about him. They activated him, and he got a big pick. The D also sacked Ryan 3 times. They recorded 5 tackles for loss and had 3 stops on 3rd down. So big-time game for the Carolina defense. I did expect the defense to have somewhat of a bounce back. The defense has not been terrible. But I also expected Sam Darnold to struggle, and he did, especially in his passing. He was 13 of 24 for 129 yards. He had no touchdowns, and he was pretty pathetic all the way around as far as his passing game was concerned. Now, on the ground, he was tough. He ran for 66 yards on 8 carries until he got concussed in the 4th quarter. It's not funny. I should not be smiling. He got concussed. He took a terrible hit. He was out of the game. His effort, along with Chuba Hubbard's 24 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown, and we don't talk about kickers a lot, but I'm trying to, give kickers their props. Kicker Zane Gonzalez made 4 field goals. One was a 51-yarder and one was a 57-yarder. That was enough to get the job done. Matt Ryan, meanwhile, had his worst game of the season, and I mean his worst game of the season. 20 of 27 doesn't sound bad, but it was only for a measly 146 yards. He only threw 1 touchdown. Along with that, he threw 2 interceptions, and in a scrum, got his hand stepped on and was bleeding all over the field. They fixed that up, and he had to wear a glove for the rest of the game. He'll probably be wearing a glove, so we'll be calling him Matty One Glove. Instead of Teddy Two Gloves, now we got Matty One Glove. The Miami Dolphins, another division rivalry, had to go up to Buffalo and play the red-hot Buffalo Bills. Now, quarterback Tua Tagovailoa got a vote of confidence from his head coach, Brian Flores, before the game, got another one on Monday after the game, and the supposed deal for Deshaun Watson actually never went through. There were some details that weren't able to get hammered out at the last minute. Trade deadline passed. That deal was not done. Unfortunately, Tua and his teammates had no chance against a strong Buffalo defense. Buffalo defense had 2 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, 4 tackles for loss, and 3 stops on third down. That's fairly dominant. Josh Allen and the Bills got off to a slow start themselves, but in the second half, they went more to a quick passing, underneath passing game. He was able to find Cole Beasley, who's a savant coming out of the slot and working the underneath routes. He hit Cole Beasley 10 times for 113 yards, and he hit his running back, Zach Moss, 6 times for 39 yards. He completed 29 of 42 altogether for 249 yards and touchdown passes to Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. Unfortunately, a bad Madden note. I've been starting Emmanuel Sanders on a lot of my fantasy teams for a good while now. Somehow, some way, Emmanuel Sanders did not get a touch in this game. I'm not even sure if he was targeted. That almost sank me in a couple of fantasy games, but luckily my teams are all pretty good and I won just about all of them. On top of that, Josh Allen. Yes, on top of that, Josh Allen rushed 8 times for 55 yards. Great dual threat. How great a dual threat is he? He broke Cam Newton's NFL record of 28 rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in his first 50 NFL starts. Kudos to Josh Allen. Next up, your San Francisco 49ers rolled into Chicago to play the Bears. Obviously, the Bears have issues. San Francisco is not looking great, but they're better than the Bears. Jimmy Garoppolo bounced back from a poor performance in his loss to Indy last week. He led a balanced attack. He threw for 322 yards. And even though he only completed 17 passes, he pushed the ball downfield. He did not throw for a touchdown, but he scored twice on the ground. So that's a good thing. And he got strong production from running back Elijah Mitchell, who we both praised last week. Elijah Mitchell carried the ball 18 times for a nice 137 yards. He also scored a touchdown. Red hot Deebo Samuel, undoubtedly the best player on your team, is having a spectacular year. He caught 6 passes for 171 yards with 1 catch and run that went for 83 yards. Kicker, Joey Sly, connected on 4 of 5 field goal attempts. His longest was 52 yards. So, when you hear Jimmy G throws for 322, but he only completed 17 passes, that equals a lot of yak. Deebo Samuel's middle name is Yak, okay? So good thing for the 49ers. Now, real quick on the Bears. I've been talking about head coach Matt Nagy and his questionable play calling and his use of rookie quarterback Justin Fields. In a game that the Bears won earlier this season, Fields praised the way offensive coordinator Bill Lazor called plays in that particular game. And against the Niners, even though it was a loss, with Nagy not there at the game because of COVID protocols, Fields had arguably his best game of the season. The Bears tried to run the ball, obviously, to keep pressure off of Fields. They used Khalil Herbert. He rushed 23 times for 72 yards. And although Fields didn't put up great numbers through the air, he did throw a touchdown pass. And the coaching staff, since Nagy wasn't there, turned him loose on the ground. Guess what he got? 10 rushes for 103 yards, okay? Evidently, everybody in the organization knows how to use Justin Fields except for the head coach. Baffling. Wow. Pittsburgh Steelers, big-time division rivalry with the Cleveland Browns. They had to go up to Cleveland to play. And let me tell you something. Baker Mayfield is a mess. This game wasn't real pretty, but, I'll let you know what happened here. But Baker Mayfield is really having problems. He has only 6 passing touchdowns so far this season. And he threw 225 scoreless yards against the Steelers. 225 ain't great. No touchdowns, even worse. Consequently, the Bears, who looked like surefire contenders at the beginning of the year, are now struggling to keep things together. Without their vaunted run-blocking offensive line and their stable of running backs, seems like there's no bottom to this running back thing they got going. But without it, they wouldn't have much to bring to the table each week as far as offense is concerned. So they're lucky that Nick Chubb came back from injury. They're still waiting for Kareem Hunt to come back. But Dearness I forgot his last name, Johnson, Dearness Johnson, has been filling in admirably. Let's see, what did Chubb have? Chubb had 16 carries for 61 yards, and actually, he would have had an even better day, but a couple of really good runs got called back on some questionable holding calls. I didn't watch that game completely, but I did see some plays where flags came out, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on because I saw no holding, but, you know, referees, what are you going to do? Meanwhile, the formula for the Steelers is check downs, quick releases, solid run game, and a formidable defense. We talk about that all the time. Every team needs to have that. But living off of check downs and quick releases, short passes, short to intermediate passes, living all that off of that might not be a total formula for success. I mean, it's working for the Steelers right now, but they kind of have to be that way. Big Ben completed 22 of 34 for 266 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, let's face it, his pass protection isn't the best. His arm strength's fallen off a lot. Rookie running back Najee Harris has been carrying more than his share of the offense, and he had a big workload on Sunday again. He had 26 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson gets most of the short passes and helps keep chains moving, and the defense, again, was solid. They had 4 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, 2 stops on 4th down, 3 stops on 3rd down, and 4 tackles for loss. So big win for the Steelers in a tight division race. Okay. Oh, here's a non-divisional game. Excuse me. Philadelphia Eagles got to travel to Detroit to play the hapless Lions. Oh, my goodness. Thought this game would be a little bit better considering the Lions gave the Rams a little bit of trouble the week before. But the Eagles finally got a team they could completely dominate, and that hasn't happened since week 1 against Atlanta. At least 3 of their 5 losses, I would say, may have been wins, or at least may have put them in position to win if they had just given the run game a chance. They did not do that. So what do against a basically defenseless team? They run the freaking ball, of course. Jalen Hurts only completed 9 of 14 passes. This guy's been throwing 40 passes week after week after week. But in this game, he was 9 of 14. He ran the ball 7 times for a whopping 71 yards. Boston Scott carried the ball 12 times, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jordan Howard, off the practice squad, carried the ball 12 times, 57 yards, 2 more touchdowns. Even Kenneth Gainwell got 13 carries. If I'm Miles Sanders, I'm working on a trade. Get me out of here, okay? Because I think his days as an Eagle are done. But, you know, what can I say? We'll see if this is a trend or not. But I know Eagle fans have been calling for an expanded ground game for some time now. So we'll see what happens next week. Next up, Tennessee Titans went to Indianapolis to play the Colts. Again, another division rivalry. This game was crazy. Tennessee ended up winning the game 34-31. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to talk about Carson Wentz real quick. We're going to call this the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? Here's the good. Carson Wentz has thrown multiple touchdowns in each of his last 5 games. He threw 3 touchdowns in this game. He also, surprisingly to me, I did not know this, had only thrown 1 interception coming into this game. Good. Now the bad. Wentz was a horrible 27 of 51 for 231 yards. He threw a ton of wobbly ducks, and a bunch of them were underthrown. In fact, he underthrew the ball so much that he ended up, most of those underthrows ended up being defensive pass interference. He actually racked up 95 yards worth of defensive pass interference calls against the Titans over the course of the game. Oof. Now the ugly. I mentioned Wentz came into the game with only 1 interception on his record for the whole season, but he threw 2 interceptions in this game. The first one came with 1:26 left in regulation, probably the worst time you can throw one. The Colts are on their own 8-yard line and the score's tied at 24. They're trying to start to mount a long drive to try to finish the game off. Wentz, trying to avoid a sack, tossed an inexplicable left-handed pitch right into the hands of Titans cornerback Elijah Molden. He just waltzes into the end zone for a pick six. Now, with little more than a minute left to play, they attempt a game-winning drive. Wentz throws a couple of incompletions before hitting a long pass to wide receiver Michael Pittman. Then he looks bad again on a couple of plays. Then he draws another DPI against the Titans that gets him down to the 1. And then Jonathan Taylor scores from the 1-yard line. That's crazy. They didn't deserve to be able to complete that drive and get the game in overtime. But in fact, they did. But then in the overtime, Wentz threw his second interception. The Titans were able to convert the turnover into a game-winning field goal. Boom, done deal. Now, here's the bad news for the Titans. Derrick Henry has an injured foot that will require surgery. I believe he got the surgery yesterday or he's getting it today. It will probably keep him out for 6 to 10 weeks. Some people are saying it doesn't make sense for him to even attempt to come back this season. He should just wait out till next year. Some people are saying if it's 6 to 10 weeks and the Titans make a playoff run, it is possible, not probable, but it is possible that Derrick Henry would try to make a comeback and see how far he can help take them. Let me see. In the meantime, Ryan Tannehill's going to have to raise his game now. He did enough to get the win on Sunday. He did throw 2 really ugly interceptions, but for the most part, he was efficient. He was 23 of 33 for 265, and he did throw 3 touchdown passes. Oh, okay. This game was a shocker to me. I watched this game, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Cincinnati Bengals, the red-hot Cincinnati Bengals, go to the Meadowlands to play the New York Jets. The New York Jets win the game 34-31. Let me apologize for busting on Mike White. That's his name, right? I want to call him Clark Kent now. I think his name is Mike White. My goodness. Anyway, after a blowout of the Lions in week 6, followed by a dominant win over the Ravens, the Bengals seemed to take the Jets lightly. In my eyes, that's the way I saw it. I think that, and this happens, pro, college, high school, little league, team comes in, they don't quite focus on their opponent because the opponent hasn't looked good, and before you know it, you're in a game. Now, their defense was able to sack Mike White twice, and they picked him off twice, but they were only to get 1 stop on 3rd down. So for some reason, the defense was off. I don't know. Joe Burrow did throw 3 touchdowns, and he had 1 disastrous interception in the 4th quarter, and I do mean disastrous. Now, Joe Mixon couldn't really get going on the ground. I don't know who woke up the Jets defense, but they held Mixon in check, and the only real big plays the entire day for the Bengals was a 55-yard pass to T. Higgins and a 46-yarder to Mixon. Burrow's interception came, excuse me, with 4:36 left in the game, and the Bengals were up. Shaq Lawson actually read a screen pass, broke on it, tipped the ball up in the air to himself, and boy, that one hurt. Right after that, Mike White comes in, throws a touchdown to tight end Tyler Croft, and that's all she wrote for the Cincinnati Bengals. Tough loss for them. I know it stung really bad, but we'll see if they can bounce back. Meanwhile, we'll have to also see if the Jets can turn that into something more positive. But Mike White got the job done. LA Rams, super hot Ram. Okay, here you go. Here's a game with arguably the best team in the NFL at this moment. And I say arguably because we haven't talked about the Dallas Cowboys yet. But the LA Rams go down to Houston, Texas, play the Houston Texans. Arguably the worst team, and not so arguably the worst defense in the NFL. So let's get this out of the way real quick. Davis Mills, threw for 310 yards, but most of it was in the fourth quarter of the game after the team fell behind 38-0. So if you were stuck because of bye weeks in fantasy and you're like, I'm just going to flip a coin and grab Davis Mills, guess what? It worked. But in real life, no, sir. Got nothing done. Matt Stafford wasn't even in the game in the fourth quarter. 38-0. He took a seat. No problem. Both of Davis Mills' touchdown passes were in the fourth quarter, mostly against a soft prevent defense by the Rams. The Rams were super efficient as usual on offense. Stafford was a nice 21-32 for 305 yards and 3 touchdowns. One went to Cooper Kupp, one went to Robert Woods, one went to running back Darrell Henderson. Darrell Henderson's having a nice year. And in this game, he rushed 90 yards and he scored a touchdown. So the Rams are firing on all cylinders and looking wonderful. Next up, New England Patriots go all the way up to the West Coast to play the LA Chargers. Ooh, man, I got to tell you, New England got the win, 27-24. It was a good game. Didn't go as expected in my mind, but I wasn't surprised by the end of the game. I have a bit of a new respect for the Patriots defense. I mean, I always admired Bill Belichick for being able to scheme up difficulties for opposing offenses. And he did a really nice job on the high-scoring Chargers offense this time. Justin Herbert only completed 18 of 35 passes for 223 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns, but he also threw 2 interceptions. And both of them were picked off by Adrian Phillips, who was a former Charger. I think they let him go about 2 seasons ago, and he's been playing for the Patriots. He got 2 picks, and one was a pick 6. For the Patriots, Mac Jones was inefficient, completing only 18 of 35 passes for 218 yards. He didn't throw any TDs, but he also didn't have any turnovers. He game managed the offense into position for 4 Nick Folk field goals, and Damian Harris had a touchdown run. Great job by Mac and Cheese. Great managing job on offense. Nice turn up on defense. Boy, I'll tell you, the AFC East looks like Buffalo is going to win it. It looks like they're going to rule it, but New England ain't dead yet. Going to have to keep an eye on them. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars looking horrible. Got a chance to play somebody else that's looked horrible for the last 2 weeks, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I'll tell you this. We talk about West Coast teams coming to the East Coast. Nobody has a longer distance per air yards to travel than the Seattle Seahawks. Well, the same thing works going the other direction. It's probably even worse coming from the southeast to the northwest. Not that I need to help Jacksonville explain their loss. They're just not good. But anyway, Geno Smith was bad in his previous 2 starts, but he put together a nice day against the defenseless Jaguars secondary. He completed an almost perfect 20 of 24 passes. Listen to this accuracy from my man Geno. 20 of 24 passes, only 195 yards, but 2 touchdowns. The Jaguar defensive front, however, did come to play, and they did really well in the trenches. They sacked Geno 3 times. They pretty much shut down the run game. They had 7 tackles for loss, so Seattle could barely run the ball at all. They had 5 stops on 3rd down, so they did the job up front, but the secondary was horrible. When Geno looked downfield, he found wide open receivers all over the place, especially Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett was beating coverage time after time, caught 10 passes for 142 yards, and DK Metcalf caught 2 touchdown passes. Good job by DK there. His scoring is down a little bit, I think, from what we presumed it would be, but he's starting to crank it up a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if Russell Wilson gets back soon. I heard he got the pin taken out of his finger, and the stitches are healed up. So he'll probably start rehabbing and maybe throwing the ball again very soon. Okay. This game was kind of hard to watch for some people. I heard people say this was a horrible game. I didn't think it was a horrible game, but that's because I like defense. But anyway, here we go. Washington was on a 3-game losing streak. Denver had lost 4 in a row. A win for either team would be refreshing. A loss would be devastating. For most fans, this wasn't very pretty, but I love the defensive energy from both squads, who up to this game had been punched in the mouth several times. For Denver, Teddy Bridgewater has been very disappointing. The Broncos have a nice receiving core with Courtland Sutton, Tim Patrick, and Jerry Jeudy just got back from injury. Teddy was 19 to 26 for 213 yards and 1 touchdown pass. He did throw 1 pick with mostly short to intermediate shots and check downs to the backs. He tried to control his possessions, but the Washington D was pretty scrappy. And I've been talking bad about the Washington defense quite a bit, but they do make plays from time to time, just have no consistency. In this game, they sacked Teddy 4 times and had 6 tackles for loss. That's big time. That's big time. Teddy was able to hit Sutton twice. He found Jeudy 4 times, and Tim Patrick led all Bronco receivers with only 3 catches and only 64 yards. He's got to do better with really nice skill position players like that young wide receiver core is. He's just got to do better. And all of this, or this little bit, was done against the worst pass defense in the NFL. They actually had more success on the ground. Melvin Gordon rushed for 47 yards on 10 carries. He had a touchdown on the ground. And Javonte Williams chipped in for 9 carries for 35 yards, and he had 13 receiving yards. So the backs did a good job, but Teddy just couldn't find the receivers. Tough day for him, but they did pull out the win. Gordon also caught 3 balls for 15 yards, and he scored a touchdown through the air also. Now, poor Taylor Heineke, poor Washington football team. I don't know. Heineke was awful. He was awful. He tried to survive with short passes and checkdowns like Teddy did, but he only threw for 1 touchdown, and he threw 2 interceptions. Even the kicking game couldn't be relied on by either one of these teams, as the normally reliable Brandon McManus for Denver made 1 kick and missed 1. And Washington kicker, and I know you watched the Washington game and saw, this guy's name is Chris Blewett, Blewitt. How can you trust a kicker named Blewett? He made 1 field goal and had 2 field goals blocked. In the final minutes, Denver gets their 2nd field goal blocked. Oh, I'm sorry. They got their 2nd field goal block on Blewett. They scored touchdown. Then Heineke throws a red zone interception trying to come back. Denver gets the ball back, hands it off to Melvin Gordon. He gets stripped, loses the ball back to Heineke and the Washington football team with a chance to get close enough to tie the game and take it to overtime. He throws the ball out of bounds. He takes a sack, and then he throws a Hail Mary that damn near went into the seats. Taylor Heineke, I don't know what to say, bro. Hey, hopefully Fitzmagic is getting better. I'm going to have to check on him. He may be coming back. They definitely should try him because Heineke is not getting it done. And the fans are quite upset, by the way. I have some friends in D.C. They're about to turn their Redskin Washington football team cards in. You know, a lot of them still call him by the other name. But they're fed up, man. They're fed up. I don't blame them. Next up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers riding high. Go down to New Orleans to play the Saints. And the Saints come away with the victory. Another bit of a surprise. I know the New Orleans Saints defense has been playing well, but I didn't think they'd beat Brady and the Bucs. I really didn't. They won the game 36-27. Now, just when it looked like Jameis Winston might solidify his place in New Orleans as their starting quarterback, he goes down with a serious knee injury, tore up his ACL and his MCL. He's done for the season. Before he went down, he passed for 1 touchdown. He ran 4 times for 40 yards, but on a scramble, he got mangled, tore his knee up. Enter Trevor Siemian. If you don't remember, Trevor Siemian The last time I actually saw him play in a game was for the Denver Broncos some years ago. I want to say at least 3 seasons ago, but I remembered his name as soon as I saw him come in the game. So Trevor Siemian actually came in and managed the game pretty well. He led the Saints on 5 drives that resulted in 2 touchdowns and 3 field goals. Alvin Kamara was leading the way on offense as usual, and the Saints D was able to victimize Tom Brady just enough to hold on for the win. Brady had a great fantasy day, even without Gronk and AB, who are out with injuries. He targeted Chris Godwin 12 times, connected on 8 of them for 140 yards and a score. Mike Evans scored also, but he only caught 2 balls on 4 targets for 48 yards. And the Saints D pressured Brady relentlessly, which everybody knows you have to be able to do if you're going to have any chance in beating him, regardless of what team he's on. They actually sacked him 3 times. They forced him to fumble, which they recovered. They snatched 2 interceptions, and they had 6 tackles for loss. The last interception was a pick 6 with 1:24 remaining in the game. That sealed the deal for the Saints. Good job, New Orleans. Now, what they're going to do quarterback-wise, I don't know. I think Simeon may start the next game because he's out with a concussion. I don't know if he's going to be ready for this game. Next up, Dallas Cowboys roll into Minnesota and win the game 20-16, coming off a bye. This was Sunday Night Football. So Kirk Cousins has thrown multiple TDs plenty of times this season. And with Dak Prescott being out of this game to rest his injured calf, this looked like a game he may have been able to outscore the Dallas offense. Because let's face it, he's thrown multiple TDs in several games. And the Dallas offense was working with backup Cooper Rush. But as we've seen so many times before, Cousins produced a dud. He struggled against the speedy Dallas D. These guys, especially their D-backs, man, these guys are so fast. They fly all over the field. They're fast and strong up front. Dallas D looks way better than I expected them to and seem to be improving week after week. Cousins just couldn't maintain drives. He was 23 of 35 for 184 yards, threw 1 touchdown, and he threw 1 interception. Cooper Rush, on the other hand, this was his first career start. He struggled a bit in the first half before getting it together in the second half. He finished with 24 completions on 40 passes, which is way too many passes for him to have to throw. But hey, it was the Vikings defense, so what the heck. He threw for 325 yards and 2 touchdowns. Some of his throws were a little off target, but CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper made him look good with some great catches. CD caught 8 balls for 112 yards, and Amari Cooper grabbed 8 for 122 yards and a touchdown. So kudos to the Cowboys. They keep it rolling. Now, last game, Monday Night Football, my New York Giants go to Arrowhead to play the Kansas City Chiefs. I called this one an upset. I wanted the upset. I believed that they could get the upset. They did not. They lost the game 20-17. They put up a great effort, but again, mistakes and missing playmakers because of injury, I think, had a lot to do with it, but mostly mistakes. The Chiefs got the win, but they're not out of the woods yet. I've been telling you about the Chiefs. In my eyes, Mahomes just doesn't look comfortable. On the first drive of the game, the Chiefs rolled down the field, but Mahomes fired a pass, a jump pass of all things, into traffic in the end zone, and that got picked off. I think it bounced off of somebody's helmet or something. I looked at that play a couple of times. There was a couple of DBs there, and there were 3 Chiefs receivers all in the same vicinity. So that play was doomed from the start. Mahomes threw a total of 48 passes in the game. Andy Reid's pass happy, man, still. But he only completed 29 of them for 275 yards, and he only threw for 1 touchdown. Now, for the 4th time this season, he has failed to average more than 6 yards per attempt. That's average. He threw 14 touchdown passes between weeks 1 and 4, but he's only thrown 5 touchdown passes along with 6 interceptions over the last 4 weeks. Some teams are getting better. The Chiefs are not one of them. Now, I called for the upset in this one, and my team had their opportunities. With so many injuries to the receiving core, the Giants have had to depend on Devontae Booker, who's sitting in for Saquon Barkley, but he's doing a fine job. He has not been disappointing at all. He ran the ball 15 times for 60 yards, and he caught 5 of 6 targets for another 65. The Giants' D has also been improving over the last few weeks. They did a fairly good job controlling the Chiefs' run game and challenged the struggling Mahomes to beat them through the air. And, anytime the Chiefs have any resistance to their run game, they immediately start depending on Mahomes to beat teams through the air. So the Giants just kind of goaded them into it, but it wasn't hard to press them because Andy Reid loves to throw the ball anyway. At the end of the day, the Giants' hopes were dashed by an interception that Jones threw in the first quarter after just getting the ball back after an interception by the Giants defense. The pick that he threw led to the Chiefs' first score in the first half. Then Jones had 2 terrible series. One was at the end of the half where he got nothing when they should have gotten something. And then in the final seconds of the game, he took a bad sack, threw 2 interceptions, and killed any chance of getting in the field goal range. What can I say? My poor New York Giants. But anyway, that's the week that was. That's week 8. Those are the results. What do you say, Bear?
Number one, we do the Bias Plus report, which is our way of looking at the matchups. So we really haven't been reporting on our results much from the previous week. And the previous week would have been, finishing up week 8. So first off, how did you do for week 8?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask. When I do good, I always make sure I tell everybody, right? So I didn't say anything because this was horrible. This was one of my worst weeks in a few seasons. I won 7, I lost 8. It was really bad. And the crazy thing is, going into the week, I didn't think I really had stuck my neck out that badly. Yeah, I called for the Giants to win a game. I didn't think the Bengals were going to lose. I don't know what happened, but yeah, it was pretty bad. I don't even know what else to say, bro. It was bad. Leave it like that.
Well, this is what we do, and I think the part of the fun is looking back at what we did. That's why I was making some of these notes. Now, right quick, I'm looking here to see. We had the bias was 9 of 15, so that's about 60%. So you were on the lower end of the 50. I was just on the top end. Some of this is the thing about the rankings, the net point rankings and stuff. And as we always say, we don't put people in these positions. Those teams put themselves by the scores and the things that they do. Okay, you scored your way into that ranking, and then so when you look at some of these matchups, you're like, this team is truly favored. Vegas would say they favorite, and when they overcome. And you see them win, like the Jets win was amazing. We're going to talk about that. I appreciate the fact that you did that apology. I don't know if you've seen our Facebook page, but we have,
yes, I have
an actual apology up there. So real quick, went through some of these points. Stephon Gilmore, no longer a Patriot. Now with who was he with Carolina?
Yes.
What happened? Stephon still got juice, right?
Yes, he does still have juice, to answer your question. To answer the other question as far as what happened, I kind of lost track of him because this went down a few weeks ago. I believe it had something to do probably with age, the combination of age and money. Okay. I think he was due for a contract extension or was trying to get a contract extension or may have been up for a new contract. And I believe that they just did not want to pay him. So,
all right. Fun fact: I'm watching the Eagles play on the East Coast, right? With Red Zone, right? And you got the Rams playing on the West Coast. And at some particular point, simultaneously, the scores for both of those games was 38-0.
simultaneously.
Simultaneously at the same time. I'm looking, I'm going, is this a crazy, twin universe thing going on here? The Eagles is, first of all, 38-0 is not your average score. You know what I mean? It's not like 12-16 or, you know what I mean? Where it's 2 touchdowns in the field, 17-14. Something like, every team's going to score somewhere in that vicinity for the most part. But
right.
Nothing.
Well, I mean, by the way, it wasn't, well, I'm not going to do that to you. It wasn't East Coast, West Coast. One game was in Texas and the other one was in Detroit. But I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
We're talking about the Houston Texans and the Detroit Lions. So, I mean,
I'm like, it's just some weird symmetry there. Okay, but also, I gotta kind of. You mentioned the run game for the Eagles. Boston Scott he's still there. Our boy Corey's gone. We've seen running backs come and go. Boston Scott is still there, and Jordan Howard. This is again, they almost have the little lightning thunder thing going on there because they're handing that ball off to Boston Scott. I don't care where they are on the field.
You don't want me to comment on that, do you?
You don't have to. That's up to you.
Okay. No, because I don't. Philadelphia fans are mad at me enough.
Well, what the heck? What the heck? All right, real quick. You mentioned, and I want to thank you because you probably were the only ones who actually looked at my intriguing game of the week write-up.
Oh yeah, I made a comment, right?
Yes, you did. Well, you at least liked it. I don't know if you made a comment or not. Okay. I know you did. I know you saw it. You know what I mean? But a surprise again. You know what I mean? That's what kind of, you look at these games, you go, okay, these are all the tension factors that are going to come, and clash together there. And, that efficiency of the Patriots, again, even in the virtual world, hard to beat. I mean, completing passes, this guy completes passes, man. So I'm keeping an eye on them. And when we do the rankings, I think this will confirm your thoughts about the Patriots defense.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Wentz, watching watching the media, trying to think of the guy. He's on TV. I think he played with the Colts. He's like a lineman or something like that. And he's on there and they're talking about Wentz. And he said,
"This is a pregame show?"
No, this is one of the review shows after the, looking back at the weekend type things.
Probably Jeff Saturday.
Jeff Saturday. Yes, it was. Thank you. See, I knew you'd know. I knew you know. Jeff Saturday said, if I was his team, if that had been me, if I had his teammate, when Wentz threw that ball from the end zone, he said, I would have had to tell him, you ever do that again, I'm throwing hands.
It was horrendous.
He said, I'm throwing hands.
Bro,
I have a new theory.
Getting ready to happen, and I'm going, no, don't do that.
I have a theory. There's all of this DNA, you see who you're related to and everything. I want to do a DNA thing because I think a lot of these teams, and Wentz in particular, I'm going to mention, has the Trubisky gene. I think they're genetically connected to Trubisky.
Oh,
and don't laugh because I'm starting to wonder about Daniel Jones. Okay.
Oh, Daniel Jones is getting better.
Oh, he's getting better?
Getting better.
Okay. All right.
Look at his turnovers from the last 2 years and look at his turnovers this year. He's way better.
All right. But Trubisky is not bad except when you need him to be really good. And he has brain farts. It's the brain farts per game and at crucial times that is going to mark the Trubisky gene amongst different quarterbacks. So,
well, there's brain farts, and then there's risky, incomprehensibly bad decisions, which may or may not be brain farts. So if it's a gene, okay, that's one thing. If it's a disease, Patrick Mahomes caught it.
Well, okay, we'll put that out in the universe and see how that comes back. The Dolphins made a kick decision in the game. Rather than kick the ball, tie the game up, they decide to go for 2. The funny thing was the red zone announcer literally said, "This is an analytics decision." And I thought about that.
Okay, there you go.
It was like, it didn't make sense. You kick the ball, you play, you tie the game up, you eliminate the potential to lose or at least be behind. Play football, Jimmy Christmas. It's absolutely amazing. But that's what they did. Now, we like the coach down there. We've given him lots and lots of praise. Do you think he's getting bullied by the analytic people on the Dolphins?
I mean, sometimes when you look at analytics, it'll tell you what to do based on certain factors. But I think that one told them what to do based on certain factors. And, oh yeah, by the way, you're playing the Buffalo Bills. So it's one of those, what do you got to lose things? Hey, they weren't going to win that game.
Okay. Well, if that's your logic there. All right. I'm not going to go too much.
No, it's not my logic. It's their logic.
You're saying that's what their logic added up to, right?
Yeah, they did it. I ain't do it.
Might as well do something risky and unfootball fundamental like.
What's the risk? If you don't get it, if you don't get it, you miss out on getting one more point. If you do get it,
1 point means tie the game. You're no longer losing.
Okay, not that game. And if you get 2 points, you can win a game by 1, but not that game. So what the heck? What the heck?
Right. Guess what? Russell's back. Or is he?
Russell who?
See him take he showed some kind of pen that they took out.
And he's not back yet.
You think he's going to play in the upcoming week?
That's a good possibility.
That's what I'm wondering. They're ready to sit Geno down.
They're ready to start Russell. Not ready to sit Geno down. When Russell's ready, he'll go. If he's not, Geno goes. He's got to rehab that thing first. He's got to be able to make a fist. He's got to be able to grip a ball. He's got to be able to throw accurate passes. Hasn't done any of that yet.
Okay. Well, I saw he said he had the pen out like he was ready to rock and roll. So he's been out there faking like he's throwing the ball. But we'll have to see how that all goes. Does Teddy Bridgewater, does his arm look a little soft to you?
Well, I'll tell you, Teddy never was one to be touted as having great arm strength. His whole thing was accuracy, footwork, accuracy, being efficient in the pocket. Never a great runner or anything like that. So, and all you have to do is go back to his short time with New Orleans, and he won 5 games when Breeze was out. So, that's kind of how he operates. Unfortunately, the Denver offense needs a little bit more than that. They need somebody who can buy time with their feet so that they can let those young receivers really, really work, because any one of them can take a pass to the house and any one of them can beat somebody over the top. So when you have receivers like that, you got to maximize yourself at the quarterback position, and they're just not doing it. He's a game manager. He's on the wrong team. He's in the wrong offense. That's what I think.
I think he looks like a backup.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I would like to bring him in as a backup, but I'm not seeing him as a strong starter anymore. There's a few of these guys that are playing now. They're starting to look like backups. I think that Gronk is Brady's security blanket. I've even heard some people say that. What do you think? Do you think Gronk's health's going to have him back by the playoffs?
Yes, by the playoffs, yes.
Think so?
Yes.
As long as he's back by the playoffs, then Brady will be okay. I wanted to do a shout out to your Penn State alumnus, Parsons, for the Cowboys.
Micah? Okay.
The man was everywhere.
Yeah. People were talking bad about him early in the season, too.
Who was?
People on television.
Oh, really?
I heard a few commentators say he's just out there running around and doesn't really know what he's doing. Ryan Clark, either on Good Morning Football or Get Up or one of those shows, made an interesting point. I think, I'm not 100%, but I think Parsons had the green dot. And when you say had the green dot, the person who gets the calls, the quarterback on offense always has the green dot. He's the guy with the mic, with the earpiece in his helmet that gets the calls from the offensive coordinator. I think Parsons had the green dot on defense previously. They have moved the green dot to a safety. So one of their safeties now, I think the strong safety now, forget his name, he now has the green dot. He gets the calls. He makes the adjustments. That takes pressure off the rookie and allows him to be able to concentrate on what he has to do. It's working. He's playing better. And he's a dynamic player. Extremely fast, extremely good tackler, and he can cover. He was on the show talking about he thinks he could play at an NFL level at D-back or receiver. That's how much he believes in his ability.
Well, from what I understand, early on, they had him as a D end. So he was basically.
Yes, because of an injury.
Okay.
Because of an injury.
So now he's playing a little bit more linebacker.
Yes.
And he ran what, a 4.3 or something like that in the combine. Yeah. So there's nobody on the field he can't run with.
Right.
For the most part. So I agree with him. You know what I mean? And if he's got hands, he could do anything he wants to do on the football field. I just thought he played great. I was seeing him everywhere and he was flashing. And I'm like, yeah, I know Ben's all proud of his Penn State boy out there because he's getting it done, He's getting it done. All right, last point.
We did our draft show. First thing I said was, I hope like hell the Giants get him.
I remember that. Yeah. So we've had this conversation about coaching and who's getting head coaching jobs and why they do and why they don't. The offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, Mr. Bieniemy. So right now, you said the Andy Reid offense. And I think when we talked about why he's not getting head coaching jobs, I wondered before, was it the shadow of Andy Reid? It's like he doesn't get credit when they do great, but he's also not necessarily seem to be getting blamed when they're not doing great. And I'm like, okay, Eric Bieniemy, I'm looking at the person running that offense as Eric Bieniemy. What do you think? I mean, and is this going to hurt his potential head coach opportunity?
I don't think it's good. No, I don't think so. This is an indictment on Patrick Mahomes, if you ask me. If there's anything wrong with the way that they're running their offense, is that they're throwing the ball too damn much. But because they had so much success in the previous 2 seasons throwing the ball that damn much, they think they can snap it back and just get it back. Problem is, you need some semblance of ball control now because your defense is weak and can't stop anybody. So you can't just go touchdown for touchdown. You have to get some kind of ball control worked in there. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to throw the ball to Kelsey more, okay, instead of trying to live off a Tyreek Hill and trying to work these mediocre Mecole Hardman and Pringle and those guys who can only get open twice a game and start running the ball. And if they don't do that, they're going to continue to struggle.
All right, there you go.
So if that's an indictment on Andy's decision making, and it's hard to tell which one of them is actually calling the plays. I know they work on the offense together, but it's hard to tell because they both put the thing up in front of their face and they both talk into the mic. So I don't know who's calling plays. I think it's Andy, though.
You think it's Andy? Well, everybody said when the propensity to pass is an Andy Reid trait. Yes. So he automatically kind of gets targeted with that statement. But, okay, there you go.